The story you have been told about Notion's success is not true. What you can read online is that two founders went to Kyoto to rebuild the entire product in 2016 and Notion exploded. But that's very far from truth. Notion didn't explode in 2016. The real product market fit didn't come until 2 years later. Ivan Zhao, the founder, said it himself. So what really happens on those first 3 years? How did a startup that was barely surviving and was 3 years from dying achieve to get 1,000 users? I dug into every primary source that I could find, and the real story is going to teach you a lot if you are building your product. On this series of videos, I'm taking successful product, analyzing how they started and how they reached their first 1,000 users so we can get lessons and apply to our own products. How were those products when no one was using them? How was their first version? At the end, I connect the story with the 7 points a product needs to be successful. Let's go. Notion started in 2013 in San Francisco. The founder, Ivan Zhao, had a background most founders don't have. He grew up in China. He learned English watching SpongeBob SquarePants, and he studied cognitive science and art at the University of British Columbia. Around 2012, before he even graduated, he read a 1962 paper called Augmenting Human Intellect by a guy named Douglas Engelbart. That paper changed how he thought about software. There's a portrait of Engelbart hanging in Notion's office today. So the original Notion vision was not a productivity app, it was something way more complex. As Ivan said, and I'm quoting him here, most software these days are like toasters. They do one thing well. We wanted to build a set of Lego-style software blocks that would let anyone in the world build their own tools to solve any problem they have. That was the pitch. Software that you could assemble. It was a no-code tool before the word no-code existed. Ivan met his co-founder Simon last on Twitter. Simon was a college kid at the University of Maryland who built a creator-builder game using logic gates. Ivan saw it, offered him an internship. Simon dropped out. He was so young that when they went into a bar in San Francisco called Trick Dog, Ivan had to sneak him in through the bathroom of the coffee shop next door. They raised about $2 million from angels, friends, family, friends of friends, and the biggest check came from first-round capital. Other investors included Naval Ravikant, Mike Bernal from Facebook, and a few others. So at the start of 2014, they have $2 million in the bank, a small team, and a vision way ahead of the market, and it almost killed them. The first version of Notion was a technical mess. They built it on something called Web Components, with a database called CouchDB. It was offline first, which sounded clever in 2014, but was the wrong choice for what they were building. The product crashed constantly. Ivan told Sequoia, bugs came from everywhere, it was unstable. People were losing their content. And the bigger problem wasn't the bugs. It was that nobody wanted what they were selling. The build your own software pitch was too abstract. Ivan said the following later on a podcast. We tried that for a couple of years and learned that actually most people just don't care. Stop on that for a second because this is the first lesson on this episode. They had $2 million, a strong team, a clear vision, and they spent 2 years building something that nobody wanted. And the vision wasn't wrong. Notion today is what Ivan thought about in 2013. But in 2014, they didn't have the form factor right. The product was too pure, too philosophical. People want tools that solve a problem they already have, not one that makes them imagine the future. And here is the harder truth. By mid-2015, the money was running out. Some employees already quit before what came next. So we get to 2015. The product doesn't work, the money was running out, and the team was shrinking. Ivan made the call to fire what was left on the team. As he said on a blog post, if you look at the burn rate, we would have died together. It was not much of a choice. They subleased the apartment in San Francisco and they moved to Kyoto. Why Kyoto specifically? Ivan declared, if you look on Airbnb, the houses in Osaka and Tokyo are very different. Kyoto's houses seem to be larger. Tokyo was tiny little suit boxes. Simon and I didn't want to be crammed together while coding. Plus, we could bike around everywhere. They had never been to Japan. They didn't speak Japanese. They rented a small 2-story house and lived on the bottom floor, with their bedrooms separated by a paper shoji screen. And then they coded. Ivan's most famous quote about this period is the following. Neither of us spoke Japanese and nobody there spoke English, so all we did was code in our underwear all day. That's the line. That's everything they did from 8 months to a year. Wake up, coding, eat, coding, sleep, repeat. And what they were doing was rebuilding the product completely. Not iterating, not refactoring, throwing it out and starting over. They moved off web components onto React. They abandoned the offline-first architecture. They redesigned the data model around what would become Notion signature, blocks. Every primitive, a paragraph, an image, a database row, is the same kind of object, and any block can contain any other block. That single architectural decision is what makes Notion Notion. It came out of Kyoto. They launched Notion 1.0 on Product Hunt on August 2016. It got 5,000 ad votes, 170 comments, and it was Product of the Month, and they were awarded the Golden Kitty for 2016. Sounds like a hit, right? Here's where the real story diverges from the myth. Notion 1.0 was a respectable launch in the tech community, but it was not a viral hit. Ivan said himself, "We started in 2013, but it wasn't until 2018 with the Notion 2.0 product had launched that we saw signs of traction. 2016 wasn't product market fit. It was just enough to get oxygen to keep going." So if 2016 was not the moment, what kept them alive to reach 2018? It was thanks to one product decision, and it has a name. Ivan calls it permutations. During the Kyoto period, Ivan didn't just design Notion. He spent so much time in Figma, 18 hours a day, every day, that the Figma team noticed him. On their words, he suddenly popped to the top of our most active user list. They didn't know who he was. Here's how Ivan described what he was doing to the Figma blog in 2019. "Our general philosophy is to go crazy with permutations. If the taste is there, you can churn out versions until you find the best one. Permutations, not iterations. There is a difference. An iteration is one version that is likely moved to another one to a better one. It goes in a straight line. A permutation is many versions in parallel. You don't pick one and improve it. You take 20 of them and compare them side by side." Ivan said something else about this methodology, and I want you to hear it. "I'm consistently like, do not replace this text. Just copy and create a new canvas. In Figma, you open any file of ours and there's 7 or 8 canvases all side by side. You see how the words and design evolve between one and the next. Why does this work? 2 reasons. 1, quality only emerges when you have something to compare it to. A single design looks fine until you put another one next to it. Suddenly, you see what's wrong. 2, it separates taste from ego. When you make 20 versions, you are not married to any of them. You're judging them all from the outside. We can get 3 rules here if you want to apply them to your product. 1. For any important UI decision, onboarding, payment processor, first screen, do at least 5 different versions of it and compare it side by side. 2. The 5 versions need to be completely different. If your 5 version looks like cousins, you are not exploring, you are just decorating. And 3, compare them all in parallel. Your brain doesn't remember what it saw 10 seconds ago. It needs to see it at the same time. This methodology is still used in Notion until today. New employees take it as the Bible. Great, so now we are jumping into the part that is more important for you. Of the 7 points that differentiate a product from a failure to a success, first 3 years of Notion clearly represent 3 of them. And understanding which 3 is going to help you to apply this story to your own product. The first point, they solve a problem people were already trying to solve badly. Notion didn't invent the need to organize information. By 2013, people were juggling Evernote, Google Docs, Trello, and a dozen other tools at once. Notion didn't invent demand. It unified it. The point 4, a first experience that justified the next one. When Notion 1.0 launched in 2016, it wasn't feature complete. But the first 5 minutes, opening a page, typing, making a blog, dragging it, felt better than any productivity tool that existed. That feeling is what kept the early users around for 2 more years until 2.0, made it actually useful. And point 7, the founder was obsessed talking to users. Ivan and Simon answered every comment on the Product Hunt launch. When Akshay Kothari joined later as the 3rd co-founder, Ivan made him turn on push notifications for every intercom support ticket. Akshay said his phone buzzed every 3 seconds. That obsession with user contact is what kept the product evolving in the right direction during the slow years. 3 points out of 7. And thanks to these 3 points, that helps Notion to keep going until everything clicked. The story most people tell about Notion is they had a viral launch, and that's wrong. The real story is that they got 3 product instincts right, and they were patient enough to see the world catch up. So what do you do with this if you are building something now? 3 things. Concrete, not inspirational. 1. Stop confusing your launch with your product market fit. Notion's successful launch in 2016 had nothing to do with the real traction. Most products, when they are starting, they spend a period of 2 or 3 years until they get the first product market fit. So if you are currently in this moment, don't kill the product just because you don't see result. 2. Use permutations on every decision that is going to shape your product's future. Not just design, pricing, the onboarding flow, the payment flow, the email you are going to send to your users. When you are going to make a decision that is going to live with you for a long time, make several options and use permutations to choose the right one. And 3, if your runaway is dying, sometimes the best movement is to leave. Not literally to Kyoto, but Ivan's decision was to cut all the expenses until they figure out what to build. They changed San Francisco expenses for Kyoto expenses, and that gave them a year. If you're a founder running out of money, sometimes the question is not how do I raise more money, is how can I cut expenses until I make it work. Look, this is not only theory for me. At Flutter Lab, we help more than 50 companies to build their digital products. And the lesson from Notion that I see most often is the first one. Most product doesn't have a launch problem, they have a patient problem. When a client tells me, we launch and nothing happened, I always ask them for their post-launch plan. What are they going to keep doing until the product reach product market fit? Because real traction shows up in retention. It doesn't show up in new installs. The permutations methodology we apply directly, not only for design, for every product decision that is going to be core for the client. Make 5 versions, compare them, and choose the best one. It's slow at the start, but it saves you months later. So if you are building something and this resonates with you, the link is below. If you like this format, subscribe. We are going to continue analyzing successful products to get the lessons so we can apply it to new products that we are building today.